Welcome back to another episode of Touching Base. I'm Zach Miller, joined by my co-host Vance, and we're thrilled to introduce one of the city council candidates for Ward 2 in Norfolk, Jim McKenzie. Jim, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming. I know we've been wanting to get you on for quite a while. This is a nice little treat for us.
Well, you asked me before the mayoral race, and at that point in time, I was kind of trying to stick with standard media. And then after the race was over, I had some folks that said, you really should do the podcast. So here I am.
That's good. Well, hopefully it's a good thing for you, and we won't put you in any bad positions. So that's always a good thing too. Now you're originally from the area, right? I heard maybe you were born in Alaska? Or?
Yeah, my grandmother was born in Norfolk, 1884. My dad was born in Norfolk, raised in Norfolk. And after he was in World War II in the Pacific, he came back and he wanted a new adventure. So he moved to Alaska. So all of us kids are born there. And then about 69, 70, we moved back to Nebraska. I was about 9 or 10 years old and came back to take care of his mom and been here ever since. So graduated from Norfolk Senior High, went to Northeast Community College for IT and was going to go on to get a 4-year degree and had some great job opportunities that kind of kept me from ever going that direction. So
that's good though. I mean, IT seemed to have done pretty well for you.
Yeah. I mean, it was a fantastic opportunity.
That's super early for IT too, really.
Yeah.
Punch cards and all that stuff. Yeah, it was, the changes have been phenomenal.
Have you kept up with a lot of them? Obviously.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. AI it's an amazing technology. We're in its infancy. Of course, everything can be used for good and bad, and AI is the same way, but the potential of what it can do is pretty amazing.
Is it scary at all?
It does, but it also impresses me at the same time.
Yeah.
I've used it to ask questions that you would spend hours and hours and hours doing research, and AI can come back and do that in 30 seconds. Now, AI makes mistakes, and you certainly have to go back.
You kind of have to learn how to argue with it at times.
Exactly.
Certain language learning models for sure, because there's definitely a bias to them. I've used a lot of them, but I've also fixed a ton of things. Like give me a heads up, or I used it when I worked at NIM all the time. I would use it to, troubleshoot a machine. Like, hey, this is the machine. Go through the user manual and find me what possibly where I need to go first.
I recently had an issue with my vehicle, and I took it to the mechanic, and it didn't throw any codes. And I explained to my mechanic what it did, and he said, well, this is the solution. He was pretty sure. And I thought, okay, so he had to order parts. I thought, well, I'm going to go home and just ask AI. I gave it the exact same scenario, what the situation was. And the more information you give it, the better it is.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, temperature can affect your vehicle. So it was temperature, this was speed. I gave it all that information, and it came back with the exact same diagnosis as my mechanic, who's got, 30 plus years experience, exact same diagnosis. And I was pretty impressed with that.
That is pretty impressive.
Yeah.
What's your go-to model?
Chat GPT right now.
Is
for
it
the most
still?
part. Yeah. Now there's lots of others, and I need to expose myself to those, but that's one I've kind of.
The only two I've used is Chat GPT and then Claude, I think is the other one is what it's called.
Yep.
That one seems to be pretty good too. It's weird how they spit out different ways and models.
Definitely. I like Grok too.
Yeah.
Grok can be good, but depends on what you're asking too. I've noticed because Chat GPT, it literally won't say certain things.
Yeah.
It won't allow you to do it, and it'll get a little spicy at times, but I'll just keep going. You're not there.
Yeah.
Figure it out.
Yeah. I mean, you really have to, when it gives you bad information, you really have to correct it.
Yeah. And a lot of people don't know that though. They just take it right off the bat and like, oh, this is what it's saying. Google just told me this is the answer. Because Google has, when you Google search now, it just has an AI overview right on your phone, at least. I guess I've never really done it on a computer, but it'll give you a quick AI. And it's like, well, hold on. That's not always right. Sometimes it's close.
Yeah. Yeah. It certainly has its downfalls, but it certainly has, we're, a couple of years into AI, and you look at what that's going to be.
And that's what we have. So there's definitely better out there.
Yeah. You look at what's coming 10 years from now, and it'll change
crazy,
quite a bit.
definitely.
Yeah.
And you started an IT company, right? Early?
I did. So after I graduated from college, I worked for 2 companies in town here. The the first one was the Norfolk Livestock Market. The owner was Randy Emmerich, and I was actually the controller and the IT manager. So I got a quick experience to finance and accounting, complete accounting. And so I had to learn that. I took the classes in college, but taking the classes in college versus doing it were two different things. And but it was a great experience. I got to read financial statements and do budgeting to a great degree. And then I left there, went to work for another company, and was the IT manager. And in both those businesses, I replaced the consultants who were coming out of Omaha back then doing the IT work. And so I went back to Randy Emmerich and I said, I would like to start a software company, an IT company, because I think I can do it very well. And I displaced the other consultants out of Omaha. And so we did. We started a software company. I didn't have the capital to do it. And I asked him if he would back me for 1 year, and he did. And so I ran it for about 10 years. We were very successful. Did development work from Chicago to Utah, central part of the United States. And then, when you're starting a business, and that gives me great respect for people that run their own business, because, I was working 80 hours a week, and it got to the point where somebody actually wanted to buy my business, and I needed to spend more time being a parent. And so I took the opportunity to sell my business, spend more time with being a parent, and worked for BD in Columbus for a few years. And then I was recruited to be the IT manager for the city of Norfolk, and was there for 25 years.
Wow. You ever had the itch to start something up again?
There was always that itch a little bit. But the city was a great job, great experience. So I stayed there. So.
Probably learned a lot there too, right?
Absolutely.
Which kind of put you in this spot that we're going to talk about here in a minute.
Now, I guess.
That's good. Well, the first couple of questions we're going to talk about are going to stand around vision and priorities.
Okay.
What is the single biggest problem in this community that local government is actually capable of fixing?
Oh, that's a good one. There are probably a couple of them. Housing, affordable housing. Everybody talks about affordable housing. I would like to see, I was on the TIF committee, and we got to kind of look at what some other cities were doing and hear some different ideas from some different folks. And, what I saw was the opportunity to, Columbus has something called Vitality Village, where the city did the development. They decided what they wanted for housing, size, price, apartments, and then they went out and took bids. And they got bids from many developers and settled to a couple developers. But they were able to, as a community, decide what's important to them. And I think we can do the same thing with the city of Norfolk. Rather than having a developer come to us and say, this is what we're going to build, and will you give us tax increment financing? If we're going to put public money into something like that, let's decide what we want, and let's focus on truly affordable housing. And there was another thing that came up. One of the city staff members actually designed a 1,200 square foot house, and he took bids from local subcontractors. And the actual construction cost of that house was between $195,000 and $210,000, I think. That's not including the lot, but that was full construction costs. So, it got me to thinking, if we use TIF, but we TIF ourselves to cover our development costs, and we can construct a house using local builders, local contractors for in that $200,000 range, that creates a pretty affordable house. If you say you have a general and you give the general $50,000 on it, you got a $250,000 new house versus a $300,000 older house that might need a lot of repairs and maintenance on it. So that's one issue. I think we can really I'd like to see us be more proactive in the affordable housing and see what we can do that meets our needs. Economic development's another one. Back in the 60s and 70s, the city really went out and worked hard to bring new industry. They brought Nucor Steel, they brought Goodyear, they brought Sherwood and others, and the multiple divisions of Nucor Steel. And they were proactive in going out and trying to solicit business. And I would like to see us spend more efforts doing that as well. And not only that, but helping the existing businesses that we have grow, making calls on those businesses. What are their issues? What can we do to help them? So those are a couple of them.
Do you think, going back to the economic development piece, we're trying to fill that position,
Yep.
correct? I heard you talk about something on your other interview that maybe should be something that businesses in town should maybe
If you
pitch
look,
in for?
sure, yep. If you look at other communities across the state, I think Norfolk, from what I have seen in terms of our sister communities that are outstate, non-metro, in that 20 to 40,000 population, most of them, the economic development agencies are outside the city. They don't have city employees. The city may contribute to that, but then if you look at the agencies, those economic development agencies, there's a lot of businesses that have contributed to that. So is that a model that we want to look at here? I don't know the answer to that entirely, but how are those models working? When you get the business community involved and they're putting their own money into it, does that make that economic development more urgent? I think it's worth at least taking a look at that.
Instead of maybe just filling it so quickly,
Right.
see if we can kind of bounce some ideas off and see what
Right.
might work.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Makes sense. Do you said the housing around 200,000 to maybe 250,000. Do you think it's feasible? I don't know if I've never seen any studies or anything that we can get down to like 150 to that 180 range.
That's tough. I mean, I don't see that unless you're getting some other outside grant money on top of, if the city is tipping ourselves for the infrastructure costs and the land costs, then you would have to be some additional subsidy from something else. So maybe there's some additional state money, federal money that could bring that cost down. But I think it would take additional funds to probably bring that down.
That's kind of what I was thinking too, but that seems to be kind of the price range that people could really afford.
Yep.
So it's going to be tough to kind of see how that goes, I guess, right?
Yeah.
I think a lot of people don't think about costs have changed and what people want, but a lot of people say, well, our grandparents and our parents were able to afford houses back in the day, but an average house was a 700-foot square house. That was $50,000 or $40,000. Now everybody goes, well, it's got to be $1,200 or $1,500 minimum. And then you get into that $250,000 house. Well, I mean, there's also inflation on top of that, and also all the amenities. I mean, they had 3 bedrooms, two or 3 bedrooms in a 700 square foot house and 1 bathroom. Now everybody's got to have 2 or 3 bathrooms, and you got to have 4 or 5 bedrooms, and got to have a basement, and you got to have a garage, and you got to have a big garage, and you have to have all this stuff on top of it. People need to start realizing that's part of it. So, our parents and grandparents and older generations, previous generations were able to limit what they needed, sacrifice some. Now everybody doesn't want to sacrifice. We need the smart appliances. We need the smart everything. They didn't have that back then.
It's hard to find appliances that don't do that anymore.
I get that, but that's my point though.
Yeah,
I just get tired of hearing, a lot of times I get real frustrated hearing about hey, the cost is so much more than it was. Well, really, that's because you're tripling the size of the house. Those houses were way smaller back then.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, certainly the expectation level has changed to some degree, but I think there's an education component that to build equity is such an important part of building wealth for a family, and being able to start on something small or just to build that equity, then you can always step up.
Yeah, you don't need to have everything the first time.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
What is one thing you believe that will make some voters uncomfortable? Like something that you believe in or something that you push for that might make voters uncomfortable?
Well, probably TIF is one of those. That's kind of the hot button.
No way.
I think TIF has a place. I would be in favor of TIF for truly affordable homes. I would be in favor of TIF that would bring a number of high-paying, good quality jobs to town. But I do believe TIF has been overused, and TIF has a cost. And I've argued with people that says TIF doesn't have a cost, but there is no free lunch. when you don't get any new revenue from a housing development that's got 150 units in it, but you still have to provide city services, the school has to provide services, the county has to provide services, and they don't get any new revenue for 15 years, somebody else has to pay for the services. And the state auditor in his report to the legislature in 2024 basically said that, it's his opinion that the increased use of TIF has put upward pressure on property taxes. And it only stands to reason that when you're not getting any revenue, but you still have to provide services, somebody's got to pay for those services. And those services don't get any cheaper. They continue to escalate in cost over those 15 years, wages and everything else. So that will be something that others will disagree vehemently with me on, but I guess that's what makes the world go around, to have different
Probably
opinions.
depends on the project too, right? So the biggest one I think that got the most eyes on it was the Norfolk Avenue and First Street there.
Oh, sure. Yep.
When they were going to put up the apartments.
Sure. Yep.
Something like that would definitely increase services, right? Because you're going to put how many more people in one spot.
Sure.
So I can definitely see that one for sure. What about like new development? Does that would have to add services? I'm trying to think of one that might, one of the ones that came up that might differentiate on that, but I can't think of one off the top of my head.
And there was, I will tell you, there was one person who said to me, well, the city's got existing people and existing vehicles, and so your cost isn't going to go up. And that's really hard to gauge. We just added 3 more firefighters. That's probably
Well, that's somebody that doesn't understand the macro.
that's a $400,000.
That's somebody thinking in a micro level thinking, first order thinking.
And my response back to that, was, if you've got a business and you've got your office and you've got your staff, and how about if you take on 300 new clients and you don't get any revenue from them for 15 years? Can you do that? It's no different with city government.
Yeah.
Is there a way to change? I get really I'm probably closer to you on the TIF thing, but I get really frustrated on this TIF argument because, and I've brought it up a ton of times on revenue and bringing in tax dollars and spending money. I think the problem is spending the money. Like, I get the essential services, but can we shift the focus of the conversation closer to, let's stop wasting money on a bunch of services we probably shouldn't be wasting money on?
In terms of city services?
City services, just overall government services. Because like you said, where the auditor said that's putting property taxes up, but all these extra services we're doing, whether it be welfare, school bonds, just on top. So yeah, TIF also adds to that, but everybody thinks, hey, we need to just start bringing in more money. Well, maybe we need to stop letting money out.
Yeah, there obviously is a balance there.
Yeah.
And
I just don't think anybody talks about it.
Yeah, and that's a great point. What services are the citizens willing to pay for? What services are we all in agreement that we need or don't need? And of course,
Well, a lot of them are the people that take them are the ones that say they're willing to pay for them.
there's some truth to that as well. Yeah, obviously, and I think every government agency needs to do efficiency studies on a regular basis to see, are we being the most efficient that we can be? Businesses operate that way. No business is going to go buy a piece of equipment or hire staff without making sure that there's an ROI on that. And
if it messes up, it's gone.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Government doesn't necessarily operate that way.
Not right now, anyway. If you win, what are your top 3 priorities in year 1? I know it's tough to answer that one, but what can be accomplished in a short time frame?
Well, we've got to address budgetary issues. I've talked about our property taxes and how much those have increased over the last 10 years. So our property taxes, the property taxes that went into the general fund of the city have more than tripled over the last 10 years. The debt level of the city has more than tripled in the last 5 years. Now, some will say the debt level, some of that, obviously you have to invest. And so some of that is good, but how do you invest? When you build a street, do you build all the extras? When you Everything that you invest in, you have to look at what's the most economical and what's the right way to do that. So anyway, we've got to look at our budget. We've got to be as efficient as we can. We cannot continue. We can't do this for another 10 years. If we go on the same trajectory for another 10 years and we triple our property taxes again in 10 years, that's completely unacceptable. So we've got to change. We know we have to change that trajectory. So that's number one. We've got to look at our budget and figure out where we're going. Affordable housing. Again, I think we really need to be proactive in that and look at some things that we can do as a community to try and address that. And economic development. I think we need to be proactive in economic development. We've got to bring, the other issue of solving our budgetary thing is to bring new jobs. Our sales tax over the last 3 years in the city of Norfolk have declined. We were down 1% from 2023 to 2025. So we're not even keeping pace with inflation. Columbus over that same period of time was up over 9%. So it's a situation where we have to grow our economy and bringing new jobs. And when you bring jobs, do you bring retail jobs? Do you bring office jobs? Do you bring manufacturing jobs? Well, a recent chart I saw from NPPD, the number of secondary jobs that come along with manufacturing jobs are significantly higher than retail or other types of businesses. So we need to look at that. And then when we're looking at industrial jobs, do we look at our existing industries? How can we add value to them? Nucor Steel, what additional customers that they sell to can we potentially try and draw to Norfolk to add value to their product and help Nucor grow and bring new industry to town? And we just need to really look at what industries we want to focus on, and we need to be proactive in trying to entice those. And I'm not an expert in that, but I just think that that needs to be an emphasis on our part.
Seems like a lot of those have ties into each other. Seems like the housing might be causing a part of the bringing the industry here, and
there's workforce. Do we have the workforce? The low unemployment rate. All those things enter into those equations. And when we brought all the industries in the 60s and 70s, the population in Norfolk increased, so the workforce came in. I don't think any of those things are insurmountable, but I really think we need to work hard on those.
I would agree with you. You have been pretty vocal over the past few years.
No, I haven't.
What made you want to step up in such a way? You did the mayor race a couple years ago. You were obviously talking before that too about things in the city. What really pushed you to this position that you're in now?
It was multiple issues. I mean, I saw again the trajectory of spending that I didn't think was sustainable. I saw a lack of transparency, which was quite troubling to me. I think, the public is paying the bills. The public needs to know what's going on behind the closed doors and out in public as well. And we need the public's input on what we're doing. So I'm a proponent of, we'll talk about, maybe I'm jumping into some of your other questions, but
we kind of jump around. Some of these open up to other questions, so I'll try not to repeat any, but if I do, I apologize.
Sure. Let's talk about subcommittees. Can we talk about that?
I just wrote that down, so you go ahead.
All right. Well, a lot of the work that happens in city government, the discussion that happens on agenda items happens in subcommittee meetings. And routine agenda items, no, they don't even go to subcommittee, but some of the others that are more important do go to subcommittee. And there's times where policy is formulated in subcommittee. You'll have an ordinance that is completely formulated in subcommittee, and then it comes to the full council, and then it's discussed and voted upon. But that policy formulation happens behind closed doors, and those are not public meetings. And sometimes I know people from the press who've asked to attend, and they're not allowed to attend. But they were recorded, and they've been recorded for 45 years. And I talked to the city administrator who started that recording policy 45 years ago, and he told me it was to keep the staff and the elected officials accountable to the public. What you say and what you're doing is recorded, so you are on notice of being accountable for what you're doing. So, we've recently changed that policy, and I'm very much against that change in policy. And it happened in such a strange way. It happened I think it was a June subcommittee meeting of last year. They changed that policy, and I didn't know about it. And I did a public records request for a meeting recording because I wanted to know what was said. And they said, well, we don't record meetings anymore. And I said, oh, well, when did that change? So then I found out when it was changed, and I dug into that change, and that subcommittee where they changed the policy, I think there was only 2 council people present and the mayor present, and there was no vote taken. And it was a change in a 45-year policy of recording subcommittee meetings.
Wow.
Yeah. And I'm like, wow. And so then
which I'm in full transparency, I'm fine with subcommittees. I think they probably need to happen for certain things. Because I've been to city council meetings before, and a meeting can get a little chaotic, and to formulate the formula probably isn't a good place to do that. But I think it should probably be recorded. I don't understand how that's not part of the Open Meetings Act. But
yeah, I mean, and it truly is. There's been, the Attorney General has ruled on subcommittees that they don't have to be open to the public.
I'm fine with them not being open to the public, but I feel like they should probably still have a record of it somewhere.
But it depends on what you talk about in a subcommittee meeting. If in a subcommittee meeting you're just listening to information, but you're not formulating public policy, that's one thing.
Yeah.
But when you're in a subcommittee meeting and you're formulating public policy, that's another thing. I think it's 84-1408 maybe is the state statute on the Open Meetings Act, and it says it shall be the policy of the state that public policy shall not be formulated in secret. Pretty clear that you can't do that in secret. And in my mind, that's what's happening in subcommittee meetings. And the city, after I kind of brought this up to some elected officials that this was changed, I didn't know about it. They did talk about this in a special section of a regular city council meeting. And they did a survey of, I think it was 4 other communities in the state of Nebraska. And they said that we're an anomaly for recording our subcommittee meetings. I thought, well, that's interesting. So then I did a public records request of the research that they did. And of the 4 communities that they interviewed, 3 of them don't even have subcommittee meetings. 3 don't even have formal subcommittee meetings. The only other one that did have formal subcommittee meetings was Columbus, and they are open to the public and they are recorded. So that leaves Norfolk being the only community of the 5 that holds formal subcommittee meetings, and they're not open to the public and they're not recorded.
I was against it when it happened right away because
I remember talking about that. I had forgot about that.
Yeah, we talked about it on our other show, but somebody was saying that it's because they want to make sure they can speak their mind, and you should be able to speak your mind no matter what.
It's politics. Politics are tough.
Yeah.
We just had this conversation last night.
And if you feel something, if you feel so strong about something, you should want to say it on recorded.
Absolutely. And their public city officials and government elected officials are public servants. Everything they do is public. I could do a public records request for every piece of paper in the city, unless it's personnel, and get access to it. So that's the nature of the Freedom of Information Act, public records laws, is everything government does is public. And so by holding these subcommittee meetings behind closed doors and not recording them, I think is a disservice to.
And I think
citizens.
You're completely right, because all of the policies are made in those meetings. And I've been to plenty of council meetings where it's just, this is the thing we're voting on, this is what it's about, kind of, and we're going to vote on it, and there we go. The public doesn't really know anything about the ordinance or anything they're really talking about.
Yeah.
And it all went down in the subcommittee meeting.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's frustrating to me.
Yeah.
And there was some talk about, well, there might be sensitive things where, there's a particular person who's as a family issue and they don't want to talk about it in public, there are provisions in the Open Meetings Act to have those discussions in a closed meeting. So, but to close all the subcommittee meetings off because of a very, very fractional issue is...
Or you could redact that portion of the recording, right?
Yeah, you could redact that or just go into a closed session.
Right, yeah. Makes sense. Do you feel what you have done as a vocal citizen has shaped some things that have happened in the community?
I've been told that, and even by some city staff, that there's more discussion on issues and maybe some more homework that's done on issues before it gets to the council meeting. So maybe I've made the process be a little bit more thoughtful. I hope so. If so, that's a good thing.
I feel you've opened up the eyes for more citizens that maybe read what you have said or listen to your words. I think that's going back to the first in Norfolk thing. I think that was a big piece of that. Other people were starting to speak up after you spoke, and I think that was really a driving factor in that piece of that.
I'll bring up an issue. So the city electricity tax or the NPPD lease.
Oh, yeah, that was another one.
How many people knew that they paid 14.5% of your electric bill to the city?
Probably didn't.
Yeah. And it's the lease is actually 12%. But if you look at how it's calculated, and it's on NPPD's website of how it's calculated, it's actually 14.5% of your electricity usage that goes to the city. So the new lease that was coming forward to the council was going to increase that. And I'm going, why do you want to? I mean, the city taxes electricity higher than anything else in the city. Why do we need to tax citizens' electricity even more? And so I pushed back on that. And had I not pushed back on that, would that have been reported? Would the lease have just passed with no additional discussion? I don't know, but I think talking about those things is important.
I would agree with you. We're going to move on to accountability and decision-making questions. There's only a couple on this one. What is a vote or position you think local officials take because it sounds good publicly, but is a bad policy? I can repeat it if you'd like.
I think
give you more time.
Yeah, repeat that again.
Okay. What is a vote or position you think local officials take because it sounds good publicly, but is a bad policy?
Boy.
It's a tough one. If we can skip that one.
That is a tough one.
I can give you one
I know one. It's
okay,
probably the same as yours.
Probably the same one. You go ahead.
The language services, extra language services for people on emergency services, and which I get it, I understand, but that's just an added. Again, it goes back to where I talked about earlier. It's just more cost that we shouldn't be paying.
I could probably go either way on that one. And
my problem is AI. We just talked about AI earlier. AI can do it. We don't need to be hiring people to do that.
I don't know that. So I'll push back maybe a little bit on that. Can AI do that when you've got first responders that are having medical, that they're trying to help a patient that has a medical issue? Is AI going to respond quick enough and do it well enough?
It's difficult, but where's the cost line?
Yeah.
That's where I'm saying. Like, it just sounds really good publicly to support that, right? Like, because nobody wants to be me thinking that I don't care. Like, they just, he doesn't care about other humans. Well, no, I do, but I also think there's personal responsibility on people to understand the language.
I wasn't
that they're living in.
against the policy as a whole. My problem with it was I went to that council meeting when it was voted on, and not a single person, I think even beforehand, asked what the cost was going to be to the city, and that was my only problem with it, because from what I heard, we were going to add 3 or 4 more employees for this, plus all the employees for the fire, for the EMS and all that kind of stuff, but there was going to be more people.
It was actually just one employee.
Was it just one? Okay.
Yep. And I listened very intimately to that conversation. I had not made my mind up, but I think after the conversation was over, I was mostly in favor of that, simply from the public safety standpoint of it.
Okay. So my knowledge of it was wrong. So I guess that's why I'm a
Well,
little
yeah,
upset
I
about
mean-
it. But
And I didn't go to it. And,
Yeah.
But my view is just
Yeah, right.
don't
You're-
spend money.
yeah.
That's where
no,
I'm at.
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
always, I'm there.
You know, I'll throw something out that's, art, public art. There's the perception now that we have to have public art, and I like art. I've contributed to the Arts Center in the past, to their fundraising campaigns, but I don't think art should be funded by taxpayer dollars. And
Especially at the cost at some of
yeah, I
what
mean, the
was
most
done.
recent one that was approved was a $89,000 sculpture to go in the, well, it was originally, the city had approved, I believe, a $35,000 sculpture that was supposed to be 6x6 for a base and maybe 12 foot tall, that was supposed to go on the roundabout at First Norfolk Avenue, and they got bids back, and they selected a bid, and this is the committee that does the artwork. That was, and I'm going to get flack for this, but it was 28 foot tall and 10 by 10 base. It wouldn't fit the place where it was supposed to go, so they decided that they would put it at the roundabout on Norfolk Avenue and Victory Road. And it's a $90,000 investment of public money.
Yeah.
And that at the same time, we're saying we can't afford to upgrade our police station, or we can't afford to fix our streets, so we've got to have a sales tax increase to pay for that. But we've got money for a $90,000 sculpture. I have trouble with that.
People will come back and say, well, that's grant money, right? Or whatever.
But
People don't understand grant money is public money.
Yeah.
well, yeah, and
At the end of the day, it's public
It's
money.
public
and
money.
that money was not earmarked for specifically artwork. That money could have been spent on the police station. It could have been spent to fix our streets. It could have been spent on anything.
Got it. And you don't like the owl up at the roundabout up here?
It's fine, but again, there's a lot of wealth in this
Yeah.
in Northeast Nebraska, and I think those things could easily be fundraised. And not
I'm
use
big
public
on,
money.
and because it wasn't the state, is it the state or city issue that we talked about the matching funds? We kind of talked about matching funds for public art.
Oh, yeah. I don't remember where we left
were having
that
a
off.
conversation about that, but I don't remember if it was a state issue or a
I
city
can't
issue.
remember.
But yeah, I don't think public money should go for that. I think it should be a like you said, fundraised.
Yeah.
I've no doubt. I don't complain. Anybody wanting to support the arts, I'm for it. I like a little bit of art on occasion, but I mean, art used to be people did it, for the love of it.
Yeah, and I don't want to detract from the art that everybody has downtown. It's great. I appreciate it, but I think it needs to be privately funded and not publicly funded.
I would agree with you. What do you think local government is wasting money on right now?
Oh, that's a tough one. I think,
And maybe you already answered it too.
well, that was one item. We need to compare ourselves to other communities. We need to look at how we can be more efficient. When your expenditures go up and your property taxes go up by the level that they've done in the last 10 years, it's time to look at how did we get there and where are we going and what can we do to keep our costs at least so that we don't keep that same rate of increase.
Makes sense. We're going to talk about budget and taxes next. I know you mentioned something about the long-term financial plan. We can talk about that in here. What is one line item or category of the budget you would audit first?
Again, I would probably say it's not one specific line item. It's an overall study of where we're at across every division of the city and what can we do to be more efficient.
How do we have to get a company outside to do that, or is that something that we can do in-house? How does that actually get done?
I think we could do it in-house, but whether we have the direction to do that in-house, that's tough because you're looking internally at yourself. I'll give you for instance, back I mean, I've been with the city for 25 years, and there were times where you're going through a recession and you've got to cut, let's say, $500,000 out of the budget. Every division would be called into the conference room, and we would go around, and the city administrator would say, I need $500,000 cut. What are you going to give up from your division? What are you going to give up from your division? And we'd go around. Sometimes we'd have to go around 2 times until you got to the point where that budget needed to be. We have to get back to situations like that of what is important. And, I hear we don't want to cut services, and obviously we don't want to cut essential services, and I'm 100% in favor of that. But we need to look at how can we slim down and do things more efficiently.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about the long-term financial plan a little bit?
Yeah. So the city does a long-term financial plan, and the long-term financial plan for this upcoming fiscal year. So general fund property taxes in 2015-16 were about $1.9 million. General fund property taxes for the current fiscal year, 25-26, were $6 million. Okay, so they've tripled. But the long-term financial plan shows a projected increase for next year of $2.5 million, $2.6 million. Huge projected increase. I've never seen it that large. Now, will the city increase property taxes by that amount? Absolutely not. So, and I've seen it before in a long-term financial plan where you'll see a huge next year projected property tax increase, and it won't materialize because we'll find different ways of moving monies around or cutting expenditures back. But a lot of times, if I printed off 10 years of long-term financial plans, and so the next fiscal year says a big increase, but then when the next year comes, we don't have the big increase, but then you'll see sometimes that big increase moved out 2 years out or spread out 2 years out. Ultimately, if you look a number of years in the future, you'll see that big increase work its way back into having to actually happen. So that is another alerting factor of where our budget is at. So we're going to have some kind of, they'll probably have to have some kind of a property tax increase, because again, our sales tax has been driving the spending for a long time. And I said over the last 3 years, our sales tax actually declined. So that's putting pressure. So you either have to find ways to cut your spending or increase your revenue, and it's putting the city in a pinch right now.
What are your thoughts on, I know it got voted down, but on the consumption tax, the EPIC option type thing? What are your thoughts on something like that? I know it's not up for debate right now, but.
Boy, that's a tough question.
It is. We don't have to talk about it since it's not really a thing right now, but it's something I know he's kind of a little bit passionate about because he believes the consumption tax would be better than a property tax. But
I mean, there's all kinds of views on that. Some people say consumption tax is regressive and hurts those who can least afford it the most. But on the other hand, you have retired people who are living in their house and they're being priced out of it by property taxes. And property taxes
property tax also increases rent, and people don't understand that.
100%, absolutely 100%.
So I get it. Like you're living paycheck to paycheck because of rent going up and up and up and up. Well, the property tax, if I'm the landowner, I'm not just eating that. No, your cost is going to go up.
Absolutely true. Absolutely true. And property tax is one of those taxes that hits citizens for something that you didn't earn. Just because the value of your property went up, you didn't make more money. There's not more money in your bank account, but now you're being asked to take more money out of your bank account. You didn't realize that income, but you have to.
It's unrealized gains, basically.
Yes, it's unrealized gains you have to pay for. So overall, EPIC has some great ideas.
I didn't think it was perfect. I just think something needs to happen.
But just a consumption tax of some kind.
Yeah. I mean, when you look at other states like South Dakota that has no income tax and basically a higher sales tax to a degree, so a little bit higher consumption tax, and it's no secret that Nebraska's a high tax state. And I think that makes us less competitive for businesses and less competitive for citizens. So we've got to find a solution. Is it a combination of EPIC and some other things? Absolutely. We've got to work on that.
Mm-hmm. I think it was a combination of property taxes, insurance, obviously going up 30-45% in Nebraska. I think that might have been a driving factor for sales taxes coming down too, the revenue from sales tax, because people just aren't spending money because they don't have it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So now we're going to get into some general city council questions.
Okay.
Did you get everything out on the long-term financial plan?
So.
Okay. The city has 1 and 6 year street plan. What should be the deciding factors for who gets fixed first? Traffic count, neighborhood age, economic value, or fairness across town?
Probably some of all of the above.
Yeah.
Traffic count obviously is important. You want to fix your streets that have high traffic. Condition is obviously important. And there's also some fairness. You can't fix all the streets in one part of town that are in a similar condition of streets in other parts of town. You have to share that across every ward.
And you said earlier something that I was going to, I had a follow-up question on, but when you're talking about when we're redoing some of the streets, what gets added to it, right? So like, let's talk about Benjamin Avenue for a second. Obviously the sewage system and everything underneath and all that needed to be fixed.
Sure.
But did we need the railings, all the rest of that? That's where I come to.
Kind of goes back into the art.
The art thing, yeah.
Sure. Yeah, and that's absolutely.
Is that kind of what you were getting at?
Yeah,
with that?
yeah. In addition, we undergrounded all the electrical distribution, but the electrical transmission is still there. I mean, the tall poles, because you can't underground the transmission, but we did underground the distribution. There was significant cost in that, and I don't know that all of that needed to be done. Those are decisions that were made that probably were made in subcommittee. I didn't hear those decisions being made in a regular city council meeting where maybe you could weigh in on that.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are the things that obviously you need to repair the streets, but to what degree?
Got it.
So I didn't understand that part of it, but you were against the transmission, all that distribution stuff being underground. Cause isn't that kind of where we're moving towards as a country? It's a little bit safer. It's a little bit, for the elements and stuff like that.
Certainly,
I get the cost is expensive, but
yeah, I mean, it's a trade-off. All new neighborhoods, it's all underground versus the overhead. So I get that part, but when that was already overhead and you're still going to have the overhead lines for the transmission, but for the distribution.
So they have both then.
Yeah. Yeah. And what was that cost? Was that $2 million of the project? Was that $1 million? I don't know what that percentage of the cost was. But and then the landscaping, I mean, those are things that go on. It's beautiful.
I was against the landscaping. I was a little bit against that, like a little bit too much.
And the custom cut fencing and all that stuff. I mean, it's all very pretty, but it has an ongoing cost. That's one of the other issues that I don't think city government and probably other government looks at enough is what is our maintenance, operational costs and maintenance costs of every project that we do. At least state of Nebraska, when they pass a bill, they have a fiscal note that goes with the bill. And that fiscal note is what is that financial impact of that bill over the next 2 years, 6 years, whatever that may be. We need to do the same thing for projects that we do. What is the ongoing operational costs and maintenance costs of that project so that we can make a fair decision when we're deciding on doing that project of what's the impact on us and on our taxes that we're going to have to pay for that.
I realize that they're reading some of these. A lot of these we've kind of touched on already, which I thought we were probably going to do. But that's okay. Going back to I want to talk a little bit more about the affordable housing. So the question was here, and we kind of already did this, but what can the council really do to help with affordable housing? Is this something that is really in their purview to make a difference? And you mentioned putting together a plan. Is that something for a committee to come, like a council, like a subcommittee of the council, or is that going to bring in community members to come up with a plan? How would that actually, what would that look like, I guess?
It can be both a committee, it can be the council,
Would it be similar to like the TIF committee?
probably. It can be staff. I mean, staff could sit down and draft that out and say, here's, maybe our planning department or our planning and codes enforcement department, because I know they've done some work on actual housing plans, and say, here's plans. And then the question
Choose
is
from these.
yeah, choose from these, and they probably our housing division would have more knowledge on, is a 1,200 square foot home something that's acceptable? Is it going to be 1,400 square foot? All of those minds coming together to say, what do we want for single family homes? What's acceptable? And then looking at what's worked in other communities. I mean, you look at all the houses that go up in Omaha. What are the typical size of those homes? Are they selling quickly? Doing that groundwork, and a lot of that groundwork probably is going to be staff, and some of it's going to be committee as well as staff. But
would you be afraid that if you did something like that, they're all going to look exactly the same? With maybe
they almost have to be cookie cutter to do something with affordable housing.
Yeah. And that's exactly right. I mean,
Yeah.
you can change the facade a little bit on the outside and make them a little bit different. But when you drive some of those new developments in Omaha, they're all
some of them, they look the same. Maybe
you
the
can see
door
it. It just
changed.
looks
maybe,
like a
maybe it's a
Truman Show.
different color.
Yeah.
That's about
yeah.
it.
But if you're going to bring that price point to the point where it's affordable, and again, it's a starter home, you're going to live there for 3 to 5 years or 10 years, whatever that may be, until you build up the equity and move to a different home.
This is so when I brought this up previously, even last year, this is the first time I've even heard that that the city council even has an option of really doing something on the affordable housing. I always thought it was going to have to be from the state level or just have to use TIF. So this is interesting to me because I didn't know, nor have I heard the numbers that you said because they've dropped them down. I know when Flood was talking about the manufactured homes, he was talking 3 to 350. I'm like, that's just like, we got to get under 2.
Which I was way against that because that's out. Why is our representative trying to work and spend money in another state?
Right.
We have plenty of home builders in this area, whether it's Norfolk or just even the state of Nebraska.
So if something like what you're talking is even feasible, that $200,000 mark or even that 250 is getting way closer to kind of what I was thinking.
The other problem is you don't want to go too low because then what happens? I mean, if you own it, it's probably one thing, but if you make it too low, there's no buy-in, no personal responsibility, and you're afraid that this house gets destroyed.
I mean, I think you want to have some covenants. If you're going to put TIF money into it, I think the city can put a covenant on that that says it has to be an owner occupied so it doesn't turn into a rental. And I think anybody that's going to buy that home as an owner occupied, and they're going to make the payments on it, I mean, my assumption is they're going to take care of it.
You would hope.
Yeah.
I like that. I like talking about that because it's obviously a problem. So affordable housing is just a thing that I enjoy.
Those are things that we learned as part of that TIF committee. We learned about Vitality Village, that Columbus, and we had heard about it. And I was actually the one that called the city administrator from the city of Columbus and asked them to present and what they had done. And we got all their covenant documents and understood the whole process. And then we had the staff member that had actually done research and gotten bids from local contractors on building a 1,200 square foot house. I didn't know anything about that. And so we learned about that and what the possibilities are. And we just need more proactiveness in the city to scope those ideas out. And I'll go back to economic development a little bit. And I talked about this a little bit last night. And economic development shouldn't be, this is the responsibility of one division. Economic development is a responsibility of every division in the city. And it needs to be communicated with every division that all of us need to be talking about economic development, whether that's the Parks Department or the Police Department or the Administration Department. How are we going to grow our community? What's important to us? And everybody needs to be talking about it on a regular basis. And
I think it's the responsibility of the whole community.
Absolutely.
Not just elected officials
And that's true too. Absolutely. But I almost think that we've kind of put that in a department too much and said that's your responsibility when it needs to be everybody's responsibility.
Got it. This one's kind of a tough one too. What would you do if city staff and citizens strongly disagreed on a major project? Who would get more weight in your mind for the vote?
Citizens. That's who we're responsible to.
I knew how you were going to answer that. What is one city fee, regulation, or process you think makes it harder than necessary for people to build, improve property, or start a business? What is one city fee, regulation, or process you think makes it harder than necessary for people to build, improve property, or start a business?
Oh, there's probably, regulation. We've got to look at regulation and make it as simple as possible. But we, in the last couple of years, passed a highway overlay district and a riverfront overlay district that has all kinds of additional regulations. And I know there was one business, there's been multiple businesses that have been caught in that already and had to spend additional dollars to do that. Now, I understand the beautification and trying to control your,
but it's a big cost.
it is a big cost. So I would say we need to evaluate that again and say, do we need that level of regulation, that level of cost? Does that dissuade some investment? I've talked to somebody that's had to put the dollars in to do that, and it's
I think it would
significant.
dissuade a small business owner.
Absolutely,
I mean, we're talking in the tens of thousands of dollars to do some of this if you're
or more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I agree with you. I think there's the regulate. We're big on let's cut some of the red tape and move forward. So this is the last question of the city council questions. Then we're going to get into kind of some fun little questions. Okay. How should Norfolk prepare for growth without losing what makes it feel like Norfolk?
Gosh, I think we probably talked about a lot of those things.
I know.
Being more proactive with economic development and recruiting businesses.
I guess I'll rephrase it. How do we grow as a city the way that people kind of want it to grow and get bigger and still keep that small town feel? Is that a better rephrasing of that?
Sure. I mean, I think we're always going to be a small town. I mean, we want to grow and be successful, but Norfolk is 26,000 people. I mean, unless we get to 50,000, the character of the community probably isn't going to change very much. So I think no matter what we do to continue to grow, it's going to still have the same character. I don't see that character changing.
Is it something, and I kind of bring this up a lot, obviously I don't live in Norfolk. I'm not from Norfolk. I'm from Battle Creek. I've lived in Battle Creek my whole life. So is it more of Norfolk's got to be strong because that's our hub. I call it a hub to me for the Northeast area. Is it more of you grow by growing the area, Northeast Nebraska area?
Absolutely. And that the surrounding communities like Battle Creek are the strength of Norfolk and the area. There's some great communities, and Battle Creek's one of my
Battle Creek, Madison, Pierce.
All the surrounding communities.
All of them. And so they're super important to the overall character of Northeast Nebraska. Yeah, and they're very important to Norfolk, yeah.
Yeah, I just look at that as a good way to keep your town still a small town feel. We're all small town feel. We're all safe.
Yep.
Looking out for your neighbor type of thing, but yet growing together. High tide rises all ships.
Yep.
Type
Absolutely.
of thing.
Absolutely.
So I look at it that way, like that'd be a great thing to have Norfolk, the people in charge of Norfolk thinking about the greater area.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because you're kind of the leader.
Yep.
It's what it is. It's the hub. It's where
and a lot of money is spent here.
Yeah.
From those communities.
And when the city thinks about an occupation tax or raises sales tax, it has an impact on the surrounding communities. Mm-hmm. And that impact also affects the businesses that in Norfolk that have to
provide services to those people. Yeah.
Yeah. So we all need to be thinking about the impact on the surrounding communities.
Okay, so those are all the hard questions.
Oh, they get easier?
They get easier. These are kind of fun. So These are what we call the name it questions. So it's just quick, rapid fire. I'm going to say something and you just whatever.
I'm a deep thinker. So
I know you are. These will be it'll be not tough, but just the first thing that kind of pops into your head. Okay, so these are just kind of fun little things. So don't take them too seriously on these ones. Name one city program that deserves more money.
Street repair.
Name one that deserves less.
Efficiency study.
Name one recent city government decision you would have voted differently on.
Recording subcommittee meetings, but there was no vote.
There you go. There you go. Now these are a pick one, so I'm going to give two different scenarios, and you got to
Would you rather?
kind of a would you rather type situation. So, lower taxes or maintain services if you can't do both.
If I can't do both,
Lower taxes or maintain services.
it depends on which services. Essential services, we have to maintain those. Other services.
So let's cut out essential. We'll just do other services. So lower taxes or maintain other services other than essential.
Man, balance. That's hard. I mean, I can't just say we're going to lower taxes and cut services without knowing what those services are.
Right.
And
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
I'm lower taxes, cut all services.
Growth or preserving neighborhood character.
Depends. I mean, certain neighborhood character you want to maintain. Growth where maybe there's an opportunity that, if you got a corridor that's growing in terms of commercial, you're going to grow that corridor as long as the people that have those properties are willing to sell. It's a balance.
Yeah, I get that. Faster development approvals or stricter review.
Man, again, that depends. I mean, so, and I'll give you a reason why.
I feel like
mean,
everybody's just going to fence right on all these questions.
These are just going to be balanced.
You're the second one in a row that just fence ride these.
So, I mean, you need stricter review if there are issues with that piece of property.
Right. Yeah.
So, for instance, if you've got a drainage issue that might affect other property owners, you're going to do stricter review. If it's a piece of property that you don't have those significant issues, you're going to go, let's get her done.
yeah.
They do open up dialogue though, so it is kind of
fun.
good.
That's why I like them.
Yeah.
Because then I can push back.
Yeah, right. More law enforcement spending or more infrastructure spending?
So my answer to that is, as long as law enforcement has what they need to serve the community effectively, then you want to put more money in infrastructure. If law enforcement is not adequately funded to provide the services, then I'm going to say more law enforcement.
And I know where you're going to go on this one, I think.
Okay.
I think. Transparency or speed if more of one means less of the other.
Transparency.
There we go. We got one.
Well, yeah, his first one.
Oh, yeah, the first one too. Yeah,
so
yeah.
2 out of.
Okay, the last one here. What does listening to the people mean when the people disagree with each other?
It means listening to all sides. I mean, obviously people are going to disagree with each other. We see that all the time. And it means questioning and understanding why they disagree. And then maybe finding a common ground. You're not always going to find a common ground, but at least helping everybody understand one another.
I think more kind of like what we're doing here with the long form. That's kind of why we do what we do on the long form interviews. It forces people to sit face to face with each other, even though you may disagree or whatever, and you're just going to have that conversation.
Yep.
Like it makes it not enough people in this world do that anymore. I think we got real used to quick sound bites. Previously, kind of what you talked about in the mayoral race, you stuck to the old media, and it was great at a time when people, it just worked that way. Now we have this at our fingertips where we can sit around and just have a long conversation, and you can flesh some stuff out, or you can understand a person better by, even if there's no dialogue, you just understand where they're coming from by hearing them talk more often. You get where that person's coming from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
For you guys out listening, if you guys have questions for Jim, now would be the time to put them in the chat here on Rumble. I've got 2 more questions for him, so if there's none at the end of that, we'll probably wrap up the show. So if you have them, please put them out now. Every candidate that we've had on, even going into the last election, has said everybody says they support transparency. Why do citizens still feel out of the loop?
Because we don't have transparency. Again, when you're talking about things behind closed doors, the citizens are frustrated. And I've heard other candidates talk about transparency, but I was the only candidate who was at those city council meetings saying we need transparency. Why did you stop recording those sessions? I was the only one arguing. And I went to the council retreat and I talked about it at the council retreat. So I talked about it at multiple meetings. And there's the other side of that is the public has a responsibility to listen as well.
I was just going to say the public has a responsibility in this too.
Yes, they absolutely do. And I understand the public's standpoint as well, because, they're trying to raise a family, they're trying to work a job and pay the bills and do all the things, and they expect their elected officials to represent them. But there's also the side of making sure your elected officials are representing you, and if they're not, then holding them accountable. But if we're transparent in everything we do as elected officials, I think it reduces that mistrust that may be out there.
I feel like there's still mistrust, even if you're fully transparent, because we go back to your the subcommittees that were recorded. You can technically that is transparent because you have the opportunity to spend your time to go listen to that. Correct? You can request that information, or all the meeting notes are usually online. You can go through meeting notes and stuff like this. I think people just don't have personal responsibility at times too. And that is super frustrating for me, even though I have a massive distrust in government. I just always have. But I also think that not enough people have any personal responsibility to pay attention to what's happening also.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And even when you're electing candidates, do you really understand what those candidates truly stand for?
Yeah.
And what they're doing or what they have done. Yeah, it's certainly a personal responsibility as well.
We did have one question that got put on Facebook earlier when I had put the post out for the interview. They asked, what are your thoughts about data centers? Mm-hmm. And have you researched their effects?
So I'm not an expert on data centers at all. I have had somebody ask me that question a little bit about data centers, and so I looked a little bit on data centers, but I'm far from being knowledgeable on them. I will say that data centers are, every one of us uses a data center every day.
Yeah.
Every time you pick up your phone and send a text or make a phone call, you're using a data center. When you swipe your credit card at the gas station on the pump, you're using a data center. If you got a Gmail account, you're using a data center. If you're on Facebook, you're using a data center. So all of us use them all the time. So they are a necessary component of life. Now
and they're only going to get bigger no matter what. Like it is what it is at this point. But nobody has this problem with, it's starting to get more people in the windmills, but I've been against windmills since the beginning. And people don't have this, they didn't seem to have this fervor that they have for these data centers now. If we would have been putting more money into, nuclear power plants or mini nuclear or, even coal, natural gas, all this other thing, this power wouldn't be an issue. That now we're looking at a lot of power problems.
Yeah. So, we know we have to have data centers. They're necessary to our life. So how do we do that in the best way possible? I don't want electric utilities giving data centers preferential pricing on electricity.
True.
They should have to pay the same price that residential customers pay. They shouldn't get benefits. Cheaper prices ultimately is going to drive up the price of electricity for everybody else.
And that's going to make people mad.
Yeah.
I mean,
absolutely.
That's just how that's going to work.
And if there's a data center, my preference would be that and I'm saying this without much knowledge, that they do their own electricity generation.
Some of them are. Some of them are working on it.
And then we know that they're not going to be a burden on the grid or on the prices that other people are going to have to pay for electricity. Then cooling. I mean, there's different types of cooling that they use, either the recirculation or water evaporation. And the water evaporation are pretty significant water users. And so you don't want that to impact your aquifer or where you're at, that it's going to be a deterrent to.
Yeah. Especially if we're already, which we in our district here, LENRD is one of the only districts around that limits the wells in the type of way that they limit them. And I think they're way overboard, and I think they're crazy about it. I think it's dumb. But so if we start allowing that to happen with, wasting a bunch of water, I don't call it wasting. It is what it is. Turns out it goes up and it comes back down. It's going to be here. And I mean, that's just how that works.
But you don't want to draw down the aquifer to the point where it's a detriment to your ag industry. Or,
that's what I'm saying. Like
yeah,
if we're already limiting these guys out here on our farmers,
yeah,
and then not limit it somewhere else.
Yeah.
If we could just get them to recycle it and cool it and put it back through, that'd be
circulation. Or some of them
way.
don't even use water. It's air. But when you use air, then you have noise. So
you can keep those machines that cool. I don't know on the
air,
IT side, so I don't know.
It just takes a lot, and it's
how much
very
power
loud.
does that take though?
Power,
take it much more power.
It probably for the cooling, I would assume so. Again, I'm not an expert.
You also got to worry
I'm
about.
just not talking on the IT side. Like I'm computer illiterate.
It would take more power because they would need big fans to cool a huge data center.
If you look at some of the crypto mining facilities,
you can hear my fan right here.
Yeah,
yeah, the crypto mining. There's a couple of facilities locally, and I think there's been issues with the noise on those, and I don't think those are using water cooling. To the best of my knowledge, I think they're air
using
cooled.
air cool.
And so, again, with a data center, you don't want that to affect anybody living nearby with the noise or EMF, or you want it to be 100% safe. So
yeah,
and so
I haven't spent a bunch of time looking at it. I just know it's a necessary evil that's going to happen at this point. Like,
it's the water evaporation that's the problem, and then the power draw. But a lot of people get concerned about the water usage, but it's only, I think they get confused because there's different types of.
I don't think we're ever going to run out of water.
Well,
that's my personal opinion.
Yeah, we've got the Ogall aquifer,
and it doesn't change. It's there.
But I will say that it needs to be thoroughly vetted, and to make sure that we're not doing something, or if it comes to Madison County or surrounding county, that it's done well and not done
maybe some safeguards for the future to say, hey, maybe we missed this, because the science is not
changes.
It's not right. Like it's a educated guess. That's what science is. Yep. And always has been. So like you do your best, you make your best educated guess. So maybe they mess up, and so you maybe have to have safeguards to be like, hey, if all of a sudden, which I don't think it'll ever happen with the aquifer going down, that's my personal belief, but whatever, say, hey, we were wrong on this. It is going to have a problem. We're 20 years into this project. We're like, hey, we're going to figure something else out. This is not going to work.
And I think I've read,
and technology is probably going to at that point anyways.
Yeah, that's true too. And I've read some things where they recommend, if you're going to have a data center that uses water, that the water be metered, and that you are comfortable with how much that metered water usage is. And so you're controlling that to the point where it can't get into a situation where it's.
My first thought when I read this question was that it's probably never going to be a city issue anyway. It's probably going to be more of a county thing.
Yeah. They're going to put it out next to my farm.
Right.
That's what's going to happen.
Right. So, any closing remarks? That's all the questions I had for you. Anything that you want to get out to the people?
I don't think so. Can I tell the opium joke?
Yeah, do it. That was a great one.
Politicians are addicted to opium, other people's money.
That's
there's some great comments about an article, and we were talking about it earlier, that it's easy for politicians to spend other people's money, and when they spend other people's money, they don't spend it as wisely and as carefully as they spend their own money, and especially when they're spending it on themselves versus somebody else.
That's pretty much my 100% political worldview, and that's why I'm anti-government. Like all forms, like just less of you. I want less of you politicians. That's all I want.
Yeah, or it's like the less common sense people that think credit cards are just fun money. So it's the same type of thing. They just spend it however they want.
Yeah.
Well, it is. That's
not my money.
That's next month's Vance's problem.
Right.
Well, I thank you guys for giving me the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm sorry I didn't do it 2 years ago.
We're not that scary, right?
No, not too bad at all. So, but
good.
I appreciate the time, and I would appreciate citizens vote
There
May
we go.
12th.
Awesome. Thanks to my co-host Vance Nidek. Without him, the show would not be what it is. Huge thanks to Jim. Really appreciate you making time for us today. Keep on the lookout for more great episodes, and we'll see you guys next time.